Hello and welcome to the Futro Hidden Movie Gems podcast. I'm your host, Ty Christensen. Well, ain't you blokes? I don't know a single line from this movie. I'm just doing my best Jason Statham impression. Well, why don't you sort her off then, huh? Anything else, ladies? I don't know. That's just my best impression of him. And we've got Cameron Mickle.
You all right, Dave? Or did you make poo-poo?
Yes, I love it. And we've got Jordan Christensen.
If he's not a cop, what is he? He's some dark freaking spirit.
Oh, wait. I did remember one. So he's like,
scariest thing
hey,
you've ever seen in your life.
Hey, he's doing a great job. Promote the guy. And he goes, I don't know, man. I think he's a freaking psychopath.
Yes, Ty, that guy, he was the guy without superpowers in Deadpool 2. Remember where he... Or no, is that the first one where he teams up with a bunch of people and they all die?
That's the second one. But I don't... Oh, you mean the guy that kept saying promote? Yes, that guy was one of the guys that
he was
sucked
so
into
funny.
the wood chipper. Yeah, he's great. I think there's a future in it for him. He if he keeps with it, he'll be that guy that's always
I hope he keeps making cameos that's just like...
Yep. So today we are discussing Wrath of Man. This movie came out in 2021. It's in theaters right meow. This movie was directed by Guy Ritchie. You may know him. He did a lot of other cool films. Like, if I'm not mistaken, he did that one that I love, Man from U.N.C.L.E., right?
Yep.
I know he did that one.
He did.
At least he was a writer. He did Snatch. He did Sherlock Holmes, The Gentleman, which that was the last one I saw of his. I really like The Gentleman. And that was the thing.
The Gentleman's my favorite of his.
So let's get right into this movie. Real quick, just a quick plot synopsis. The plot follows H, a cold, mysterious character working at a cash truck company responsible for moving hundreds of millions of dollars around Los Angeles each week. And then there's a heist that ensues, and it's crazy. It's crazy.
This guy's crazy.
I'm gonna get right into it. I didn't see any trailers for this movie. Me and Nick went in blind, and we saw it.
Cameron didn't either.
Oh yeah. All I knew is that it was directed by Jason Statham, and that it stars Jason Statham, and it was directed by Guy Ritchie. So I actually thought this would be more stylistic. But the first thing, my first intonation that I knew that this would be different was when it said it was based off another foreign film, and then I thought, oh, okay, it's gonna be a little. I don't know if it's like deeper, but at least there's going to be something else to it, like another layer, as opposed to just, the John Wick, Die Hard,
I don't think it's based off of... Was it based off of...
Or any Guy Ritchie film.
Yeah. I didn't think it was based off a foreign film. I thought it was based off a book.
I think it was. I think it also said there was
Lots
a movie.
of Guy Ritchie reminds me of Edgar Wright at times.
Yes. Yeah, he has a very similar style. Very quick cuts.
Yeah.
Fun camera work. There was that intense shot where he's leaving the hospital and the camera's just right on Jason Statham and he's just like lumbering out of the hospital.
Yeah, dude. Looks like
I got super paranoid. I was like,
oh my gosh.
And even when Jason Statham is shot and he's left for dead, he is the most menacing actor I've ever seen. He's lying on the ground. You can have him shot with 6 bullets, and I'd still be intimidated by him. You can be lying on the ground.
That
bleeding
look.
out in
Dude,
front
he
of
was
you,
giving
and I'd
that
be
look.
Don't get
I
too
will
close.
hunt
He could bite
down.
you. Yeah. So I've only seen it once, and it was great. It's fun to be at the theater. It's the first movie I've seen since either Tenet. No, I went and saw. What was the other movie I saw? We did it on the podcast. What else?
You went and saw Unhinged.
We saw Unhinged.
In the movie.
But that wasn't in the theater. I saw that after. What was the movie that I went and saw for the podcast? Did one on the podcast. What was it? Was it Tenet? Was that last movie I saw in theaters? There's no way. I'll think of it. Anyway, it's good to be at the theaters. Love watching movies, even though I can't remember any of them. I'm losing my mind. Jordan, what was it like watching it for the first time and rewatching it for the pod?
So watching it for the first time was amazing. I'm going to watch it with Cameron. It was so funny looking over at Cameron, like that quote I just said, when he's like, Jason is in the bed and he's just staring at the wall. He's got this look in his eyes. In the middle of the night, he's not even sleeping and he's just sitting there. Cameron like looks at me.
Most disturbing thing I've ever seen.
I laughed out loud.
Yeah, Cameron also didn't see the trailer, so he was like, he kept turning to me and he's like, what the fudge is going on? And it was so good because the trailer spoils way too much. I'm really upset actually that I saw the trailer for this one because you don't know, because I knew right away when he was like doing the test and he was barely under 70%. Did you know, Ty, that he was like trying to be under barely at 70% and barely passed?
Yes. Only because it was either one of two things. I was like, either he's, because because if he said we barely made it, I was like, he's too stoic to believe that, like, because he might be like, well, how do I describe it? Like, he should. I didn't buy it. I was like, he's going to be way too good. And maybe it's after watching Nobody. This reminds me a lot of the movie Nobody, where he pretends to be a nobody, but he really is harboring. There's this craze is going on right now where you have these impersonators pretending to be just simpletons, and they're all very equipped assassins or killers, you know. And that's just a really fun genre, you know.
But did you know he was going to be doing headshots like John Wick?
Yeah. Oh my god.
Not even looking
that first
either. Like
bag
not even
throw,
single-handedly
I was
aiming.
Like,
I mean,
it's going to be one of these shows. This is ridiculous. He just quick scoped the freak out of that dude. He just launched it. Hey, next time throw it in the freaking truck, okay? Sorry.
Which was super funny. I don't know if you guys knew that one thug that he chases down at the very end. That's Post Malone. Yeah. I only recognize him from the face tattoos. I never would have guessed that's him. And I was like, it could be some other person with the same tattoos as Post Malone. But I'm assuming they got the actual singer and songwriter
I checked
Post
IMDb
Malone
as well. Yeah, I was super excited. I was like, no way, they got Post on
just
this.
because I don't know too many people. Bless his heart, you know. Maybe if he keeps with that career, you know, maybe something will turn out. But when you get face tattoos, I think you're pretty much in it to win it or to fail. Oh man, I guess that's your only career, right? Play gangsters in movies and keep writing songs. But no, I like his music. Sunflower and Circle, good song.
I saw it a second time. I wanted to see it a third time, but
my goodness,
the second time was so much fun. I watched it with my roommate. And, of course, he turned to me and he's like, not as good as I Saw the Devil. And I'm like, well, of course. You can't compare everything to I Saw the Devil. It's just, like, that unfortunately has ruined
He's
revenge.
Like, yeah, George, why don't you find more movies like I Saw the Devil for me, all right?
Well, that movie has ruined other revenge movies for him. And this is a perfect, I think, B action flick. I mean, I don't know if it quite hits the A list. Do you think?
I think a really high B+. I think it's really well done.
Oh, it's amazing well done.
Like, I gave it a 9 out of 10.
It's just, I went in, like Ty said, thinking it was Guy Ritchie, thinking it's like his other films, but he actually does like all the opposite things he normally does. Like, he does really long takes, and they're really good. But I'm just like, and if he plays almost straight-faced, where usually he does a lot more comedy. Like, there was jokes in this, and the crowd, in my second crowd, was actually laughing Cameron even harder. I don't know why. They were laughing at everything. It was so funny.
Yeah. There's some great moments that build up, but it is funny that you say that because, yeah, Guy Ritchie usually has a lot of levity from dark humor. And this movie, while it was funny, the humor really came from Jason Statham when he was being a bad. So it never really came from like, oh, I just killed someone, but it's not a big deal. You know, like that's what Guy Ritchie films are, where it's gangsters. They end up killing someone and they're like, screw it, you know, like whatever, like. Now I got to put away this dead body. You know, it's always like
I didn't kill him. The gravity did. That's all I think of.
Yeah.
The gentleman.
Yeah, that kind of humor, and then the quick cuts and the storytelling. Like, watch Hugh Grant and what's that guy's name from Sons of Anarchy in that movie, Gentleman? I can't remember that actor's name. But them going back and forth, being all self-referential and breaking the fourth wall and stuff. You know, very out there. Where this one is very grounded. It's a character story, and yeah, kind of reminiscent of like Nobody Meets John Wick. It's like a perfect blend of those.
Meets The Count of Monte Cristo. I like the slow revenge story. Obviously, not as good.
Are you saying Crystal or Christo?
Christo.
Yeah. The Count of Monte Dark Crystal, I think it's called. I love movies. I talk movies. So let's get into it. Cameron, what about you? What were you sitting there looking over at Jordan saying, what the fudge? What were you thinking in the back of your mind?
Yeah, well, so the first time I walked in or whatever, I sat down in the theater and then like I saw the thing pop up. It's like saying like Wrath of Man. I turned to Jordan. I'm like, wait, what is this movie about? He's like, just watch. And he's like, on you know, it's Guy Ritchie and what's it called, Jason Statham. I was just like, just explain what's happening or whatever. And so that's why everything that was happening, I was just like, what the fudge? I kind of similar to you, Ty, had that feeling of like, he's okay, way too much of a bad A to like be this average at everything. I'm like, he's definitely covering up something. And
it seemed intentional when he had the truck there and then he backed up again. I was like, that wasn't on purpose. He just knew it.
And so I loved how there was lots. I'll get to that in my some of my favorite parts of it. But yeah, just overall, it was just like really. I thought it was a really solid plot. I think they developed the plot really well to where, I don't know, I genuinely didn't really see what was happening. I really love the plot and how I didn't really see kind of the connections until like really late down the line. And I was like, that was when I was like, oh my gosh. And I told Jordan when we were in the theater, I'm like, dude, I think some like one of the people killed his son. And I was like, I think somehow somebody's involved. Do you remember that, Jordan?
Yeah, you said something like that, yeah.
I was like, dude, I think one of them was involved in like his son's death or whatever, and that's why he's like being super crazy. And then like I kind of pieced it together once he was talking about like that day, and I was like, oh my F. And then he like shows the flashback, and I'm like Ty, I was like, that is the scariest man I've ever seen laying dead on concrete. Like he's giving that look of like, I'll hunt you down. But yeah, just overall, just a really fun.
Yeah,
really
you can't kill the devil.
Yeah, it was really fun, but at the same time, there was slight moments I told Jordan afterwards that I was slightly unsatisfied.
Maybe underwhelmed.
Yeah.
Understandable. All right, let's get into two of our favorite things. Why don't you start us off, Cameron?
Okay, so one of my favorite things, it's kind of similar to what they did in Nobody, and I always love it in movies with someone who's like a total baller, is I love ordinary, like regular people, like flexing on them or being like in Nobody, he's like, I wish they would have come over to my house. I could have used the exercise. and then everyone talking to like Jason Statham like he's a little baby, and they're like, oh yeah, you're gonna be like, you don't understand how tough this job is. Like you're the prey, not the predator. And I'm just like, my man's literally like a mob boss drug lord, your worst nightmare that you could ever imagine. I'm like, this dude is the scariest person you can imagine. And they're like telling him like, oh, you have no idea what you're getting yourself into, Greenie. And I was just like, I just loved how everyone treated him like such a baby until like he just went off on those drug guys and just headshotted everyone. Then everyone was like, saw him so differently, was like kind of afraid of him. They were like, good job, man. And
you're a hero.
Yeah. And then my second thing is just kind of what I've already mentioned a little bit, is I thought the plot was very interesting. Like usually I can like piece together and guess movies pretty well, and like I sort of guess like a little bit of tie-in, but I really loved how like it all weaved together just really well. And I felt like, at least plot-wise, it all was just very satisfying. Like the plot was really satisfying, and like everything that happened, I was like, okay, like that's reasonable, or I felt like decently like understandable. Especially in a movie like this, which it can be really easy, like a John Wick movie. It's like you're kind of like, how likely is that to happen? Like I felt like they did a pretty good job of keeping it like centered in at least a little bit of reality.
For sure, very very believable. How about you, Jordan? Two of your favorite things?
I was just shocked how much I absolutely love this film. Like, I was, like, debating. I'm like, is this my favorite Guy Ritchie movie? Because I just loved that he kind of broke all his other rules and he kind of did something different. And, I mean, it's still a gangster flick, ultimately, I guess, because that's, I feel like his
forte.
I kind of feel like he does one for the studios and does like Aladdin.
Underground gangster, yeah, undercover gangster. Yeah.
And I feel like he kind of does movies like Aladdin for the studios, and then he does one for himself, and he gets to do fun things like this in The Gentleman, where he kind of leans into this world. I just love when he explores these gangster worlds and kind of the life of a gangster, but kind of
I love his demonstration of loyalty and like the connections is super funny.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I just could not believe how much I loved watching Jason Statham just like turn to this like super dark side. Like there's a shot that I absolutely love where he's talking to his wife and then it slowly pans up and he's just sitting in darkness. And it kind of reminds me of the shot in Godfather. Is that right? The Godfather? Yeah, where they even called the director the Prince of Darkness because he just knew how to show no... Because it's kind of like the eyes are the window of the soul, and they took and got rid of that, and they put the lighting so you couldn't see his eyes, and it was just all dark. And I just thought of that when they had that shot when his wife walks away and calls him a cold sea, and she walks out of the room, and he's just, so cold-hearted. He has nothing left after losing his kid, and
yeah, nothing there.
Yeah,
nothing there.
I just love this movie so much, and I just want to watch it again. Like, I could not believe how much I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I kind of liked, like a lot of the revenge flicks that I like Kill Bill. My favorite thing, I love the chapters. There's like 4 or 5 chapters in this movie. I didn't write them all down, but one of them was just, bad animals bad or whatever.
Yeah.
And you've learned it's the retired army vets that planned this, and so it's kind of believable, their whole story and character arc, where you have this team where they get together and their group sessions or whatever, and they all use each other to kind of support one another, but they're all bored out of their minds and stuff, and so they're like, and one's just crazy enough to suggest, well, let's start, robbing people. So, okay, all of them are like, let's do it. Like, no one objected to it. They're all like, yeah, let's all become criminals. It's like, I imagine in another cut of the movie, you would have had like 2 or 3 of them that would have been like, no, we're not doing that, But anyway, that's just me. But I guess they were all willing to do it.
Yeah, it slightly reminded me of American Animals. There was times where I was like, I'm like, they're kind of getting into crime the same way American Animals, and they're like kind of newbies at it, but they're like, okay, we're gonna plan out everything and like make the perfect heist, and I'm like, it's never gonna go that way. Like,
well, but that's why they started out with the small robberies, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they only made like $4,000 or something like that, or 18,000. I can't remember what it was, like 1,800 or something like that after they split it. And I like that, and they had to keep taking on higher scores, but with that became more and more risk and stuff involved, and then obviously other casualties, right? Which I thought was interesting, because after the first victim, so I love the chapters, and then secondly, what I do love is this is very grounded in reality. A lot of Guy Ritchie films are pretty fantastic and hard to believe. This one's probably his most realistic and believable movie. The only thing like I knock it for is just,
improbable
deadly
headshot
with one hand. Now again, I've fired a gun with one hand. It's very hard to be accurate. It's much easier if you got both your hands fully extended. And sometimes I just see these action stars. They just whip out their pistol and they just fire and shoot 3, 4 different moving targets in the head. It looks so much cooler, yeah. Because we kind of look dweeby when you're holding both hands straight out in a good shooting position. But that's the way cops in the movie shoot anyway, so at least that's accurate. But that was just interesting to me, that how much it was grounded in reality, and I enjoyed it. I think that Guy Ritchie is not just a one-stroke kind of genius. He can do like a character study movie. Slow, very well paced, it's very exciting, and not chronological. So,
and Ty, at any point were you rooting for certain people? Like, did you switch sides? Did you stop rooting for people?
It's funny that you say that, because like I didn't really have anyone on my side. I think at the end of the day, I enjoyed watching Jason Statham. The Wrath of Man, I think, is a good title, because it's like he's a guy so boiled over with rage. He's like doing something nonsensical where he has to get other people to like cover for him, to cover up his mistakes, because he's got these connections in the mob. And he's like, I think one of my favorite scenes was his number 2 guy that's like, look, we can't keep shaking down people like this. He's like, people are going to come for us.
The whole forest.
He's like, we shook the whole, and he's like, there's going to be people coming after us eventually, if we keep, shaking this tree or whatever it was. And I liked that guy. I think he was probably my favorite. That second-hand man to the mob boss. I just like his character for some reason.
Is that the black guy?
I don't know what he is. He had the awesome white beard.
Yeah.
And the blonde, white hair. He just was so cool. I don't remember if he was, I don't know, he almost looked Indian, or he's got an awesome skin tone. Anyway, I want to look like that, like in just a matter of a few years, because he has got the aging thing down, and he looked awesome. So I like that character, and that whole conversation that he has with like the number 3 guy when they're in the vehicle and they walk in together and they get into that dungeon lair or whatever, and they shoot the rest of the people. Jason Statham is like, these aren't the people that, robbed us, so they got to keep looking. And I just love that. Like, he's tearing down everything.
Yeah, he just murders those people, when he just casually walks out in the hall and just... I was like, oh my goodness. This man's not a man to be reckoned with right now.
Right. So, I enjoyed that. And so, we can keep saying other things that we love, but do you guys have any nitpicks, I guess? Like I said, I was surprised that the whole entire army team was all willing to start committing crime. I was like, they should have had the scene where one guy stood up and was like, no, man, this is terrible. Like, I ain't doing this.
The only thing that I thought was pretty unbelievable, too, was like that final score of like how willing they were to be like, they just accepted that like some of them were going to die. And like, they're just like, yep, okay, whoever makes it out is going to take care of the
Dark Knight at the end,
families.
too, where everyone's just killing each other.
I know, dude. And that's
but I believed it. That's Eastwood's son, right? That's, what's his face? The
psychopath.
What's his name? Scott Eastwood. He was Jan, that psychotic guy with the scar in the eye.
Dude, he's
that killed
scary mofo.
Yeah, he's terrifying. I know he's an Eastwood. I know that it's Clint Eastwood's son. Can't you see the resemblance?
Yeah.
Oh, now that you say that, yeah.
Yeah, dude. That's freaking Clint Eastwood's son.
Yeah.
Pretty terrifying.
That was the thing, too, is like, I don't know if I could ever be on a team or like be doing something like that with that much money. And I love that line. That was one of my favorite lines that they mentioned is like, they said, strange things happen to no men when they smell that much cash. And like, I'm just like, man, you should not fetch and trust that psychopath, dude. Get him around that much money, with the opportunity to have it all to himself. No bueno, baby.
Yeah. As soon as he got the opportunity, it's very reminiscent of the Dark Knight.
Then my other nitpick was just, I told Jordan this, and I was just like, maybe it's because I'm so desensitized from movies like I Saw the Devil and like Count of Monte Cristo with like the slow, like ridiculous revenge, like the perfect revenge. But I don't know, it seemed kind of anticlimactic when he just like shot the guy twice and was just like, no, you're gonna die.
It was four times.
It was four times.
The spleen,
the kidney,
liver,
the lungs,
lungs,
the spleen, and the heart.
Oh, yeah. And Ty, at the training practice, was when he was shooting the target, was those the 4 parts that he shot? I didn't catch that.
Ooh, I like that. I don't remember, but yeah, they were kind of all over the place, but they were just close enough to make it seem like he knew what he was doing. But again, shooting with one hand, I was like, do you want the job? Shoot with both your hands and take a better aim. It was just made me laugh. But maybe that was part of their training, is to see if you could fire with one hand. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't do that. but anyway, it made me laugh because, again, he's at target practice and shooting with one hand. I'm like, cardinal sin.
Well, and I love introducing us into not just his world and actually 3 different worlds, because they did the military guys, his gangster world, and then the new job. But that first day of him showing us what it's like to work, I don't know if that's what it's actually like working, picking up cash, but it seemed like
terrible.
A terrible job, yeah.
Terrible work environment. Oh my God.
I like that line that he said. He goes, dude, we're not the hunters, we're the prey. that one guy, that tool or whatever. He's the character I think you were referring to, Cameron, the everyday man. Like, I wish he would have broken into my house. He reminded me of that guy where he's like, yeah, I want to see action. And then in the end, he's like, he's like freaking out in the car and everything. He's like, dude, you gotta calm down,
Yeah, I think that was. I think that was Dave. That was when he was like, "You're right, Dave. You make poo poo."
Yes, because he was freaking out in the vehicle when they like call him on the radio and they're like, "You're gonna give us all the money or whatever, otherwise we're," and he's like, "Oh, I don't know what to do. I gotta call this in," And he was like freaking out. I love that.
They don't want him. They want the money. They want what's in here. So we just leave. And he's like shaking. I love that.
And bless him, he started to get a little bravery, and then he died. That was really sad.
I love it too when he's like, "Who am I working with?" And he's like, "You're working with the greenie," and he's like, fudge.
Speaking of like cameos, so I didn't even go over the cast, but it's basically Jason Statham carries the movie. But one of them was the I gotta find his
guy
name.
From The Boys.
So there was Mother's Milk from The Boys, which I love seeing. I'm so glad to see him getting work, and I think that's Laz Alonso. I think, and then one of them was the. You may not recognize him. He was the little miner in Chernobyl. The miner in Chernobyl, he was the guy that was in control of the miner union or whatever.
Oh.
In Chernobyl, he was the short little stubby guy that talks to Jason Statham at the pool game. And he's like, anything else? You want to buy me a drink? And he was the guy that also checked. He was the guy that worked at the table with the computer system.
And he put his fingers in his mouth and he's like, what's wrong with that guy?
Yeah. That guy was in Chernobyl, which I thought was cool because we had one of our podcast guests recommend that we do that on the podcast, and I was thinking of him. So
yeah, we'll be doing that,
Jake,
soon,
someday.
There was another what's it called? It was with the guy from The Gentleman. He was like the news reporter that the whole pig incident with in The Gentleman. He was the guy who was like working at the business or whatever.
Working at which business?
Of like the what's it called? The cash money like transporting or whatever.
Oh, one of the.
Remember he was the guy who's like he was like the main guy who like
Bullet
ran the whole place.
Bullet or no?
No, not Bullet.
The guy that ran the place. Yes, you're right.
Okay, I have a couple questions, Ty. Were you stressing out of your mind at the very end when the guy Bullet just started betraying everybody and just started shooting people, dude? That was making me so mad.
That was really sad. He's like, "Give me a gun," and he like throws.
He
him
deserved
a gun
a more
and he
painful
shoots
death than what he got.
Yes, I was so mad. Like, screw you.
Which, again, this movie didn't. But see, that's where it's grounded in reality, because in movies you get the monologue and everything. This one was as realistic. It's like you're in the moment. like, I thought the reading, I think when he got Jan to read the autopsy about his son's death, he was reading it all incredulous, like, what is all this? And he reads the whole report, and at the end, he shoots him the 4 times in the places where his son was shot. I thought that was really cool. And you're right, Cameron, blink and you miss it. It's so quick.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, snap.
Everything in this movie, the betrayal, it's so quick. Like, Sarge or Lieutenant that's dying, bleeding out, and then he's reaching for his gun, and then Jan comes in and sees him. He's like, whoa, no, let me take that gun from you, man.
He's also from something. What is he from?
And then he gets back to Bullet, and Bullet's like, where's Lieutenant or Sarge? And he's like, oh, he didn't make it. He's dead. He's like, what do you mean he's dead? He died, okay? And then he's like, oh no. So they load the ATVs and the 4-wheelers in the tunnel, and he's opening the fence, and then they're loading the Prius, and he's like, grabs out his gun, and then he's like, oh, too late. He's got his gun right under his chin, and pow, blows his brains out, dude. It's crazy. There's so many double crossing. Yeah, too slow. It all happens very fast. So
Oh
I
yeah,
totally get it.
the betrayals happen so quick.
But to me, it's like you could watch this movie many, many more times because it's so quick.
Yeah, that guy's in Burn Notice, Cameron. He's also in Invincible. He plays the
he's
robot
the
guy.
Machine Head, yeah.
Yeah, he does
I
the
just saw that. I was
the
like,
voice
what?
thing.
Is that right? He does the voice of Robot. That's hilarious. Love to hear that. Dude, that was hilarious, by the way. His character he did.
He's also in Sicario. That's what he's from as well.
And
That's what it was,
Invincible,
Sicario. I knew I could recognize him.
That's Sicario, yep.
Oh, and then I forgot to mention, like, I didn't really get to say my second thing, but I just love the end shootout. Dude, I love a good movie that has a great build-up, and then it's one of the most epic showdowns ever. Oh my gosh, that final heist, dude, I was stressing out of my mind. Just like, they're coming in full Vardy armor suits. Are you kidding me? And they're getting shot like 50,000 times.
That was ridiculous. It was like it was like airsoft almost, dude. They were just getting hit and they were just like mowing the people down who just shot them. I was like, oh my god.
I was worried that the armored tank vehicle guy, the one that didn't like Jason's character, I was worried that he was going to shoot him when he was dressed up in the garb, because he ends up taking some of their body armor on.
Oh.
And it's after he fights one in the hallway and part of it is destroyed. I was so afraid that one of his guys were going to shoot at him. Like, oh, it's one of one of the criminals. Even though he just fought one, I was just worried he would shoot the wrong guy. I was like, oh, he would. Like the tool.
Yeah, he
would shoot the wrong guy. But he didn't in the end. And he ended up fighting, giving his life up to protect the money, which I thought was pretty pointless. That was heroic of him. It ended up killing him. Yeah, it was pointless. But in the end, it's a dynamic character as opposed to a static character, which he's not one-dimensional. He actually was brave and did something, even though he died. It was because the whole movie was all centered around that. They would always tell him, hey, don't be a hero. It's not your money. Yeah. You're going to die, or you can fight. And some of them did, and they lost their lives.
No, it was so frustrating. Every time they turned a corner with a stupid little pistol shooting at these guys fully armored, it was so frustrating.
I know, I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
It was like a horror movie. I like the scene where they're in the car and the guy with the one eye, like the white eye, he gets shot right outside the ambulance van or the armored truck van that they're in. I just imagined the fully armored dude showing up at the end of the van and blasting everyone in the inside. It never happened, but it freaked me out.
Well, it's kind of like...
It ended up being Bullet.
It's kind of like in Call of Duty when somebody gets a Goliath suit or whatever they're called. What are those suits called?
The Juggernaut.
Juggernaut? Yeah. Oh, jeez. So frustrating.
Yeah, it was crazy. or Heat, right? It turns into the movie Heat or something.
Have you even seen Heat yet, Ty?
No, but I do remember the Juggernaut, I think.
No.
Does that not happen in Heat?
What movie did you
Someone's wearing a mask and it has a big machine gun. Maybe I'm thinking of a different one.
Yeah, you're thinking of a different one. That is not Heat.
I fell asleep.
Heat is a
during
two-man
so
shootout.
It's only 2 men, huh?
No, there's more than that. But
yeah.
But I mean, the final shootout is just Robert De Niro and Al Capone.
So do you guys have any other nitpicks that you guys wanted to throw out?
Al Pacino.
I would just say, like, obviously the time jumps, I didn't mind. I actually enjoyed it.
Oh, I
Do you guys
enjoyed
have
that
any
a lot.
nitpicks? Yeah, I enjoyed
I kind of like the backstory with the son, and like they just kind of like they showed enough for me to feel like when his son died, I was like, yeesh, like that's tough. But like it wasn't too much where I'm like, okay, I don't really care about this. Like let's keep moving, you know. So I think they did a good job of kind of showing the background, because a lot of times, especially in a movie like this, it's hard to show that emotional weight without.
Yeah, how long was this movie? Was it a solid 90 minutes? It felt like there was no wasted
it's
space.
almost 2 hours. It's 1 hour and 59 minutes.
Really?
It's about 2 hours long, which is surprising. But I think the one thing for me was they did a really good job at establishing a day in the life of these armored vehicles, which is so good because they talked about this in Alien versus like, the movie Earth or Underwater or Water, whatever it was called. they just go right into the action. And sometimes it's important to see what every day is like because it gives you a frame of reference. Like if you see Ellen Ripley seeing an alien, yeah, you could react, but it's like, is this not a common occurrence? Like, we have no idea. We have no frame of reference. So that's what Alien did really good. And that's what this movie did really good. It showed him, like, every day, all the security that went into... And that's why when the gunmen all show up, you're like, all of those security folks, like, all their protocols and everything was getting swept under the rug because everyone's life was threatened. And it was really cool to see the ones that talked a big game to Jason Statham's character and the ones that actually followed through with it. So I thought that was really cool.
I wish that black guy and the white chick wouldn't have done anything. They were literally hiding in their truck and then they're like, we've got to do something. I'm like, with what? Y'all got an RPG in that truck? Or like, there's literally no way you can compete with these guys.
Mind you, what did, okay, so you have to remind me because I almost forget what her involvement, she had all this money that she was going to use for retirement. Where did she get that money from? She did
I think she was just, my guess was like stealing it from the company.
Yeah, and it was unaccounted for is what she said. They just missed it in one of those bins, and so she just stole it.
Okay.
And
he thought
he kind of used that as like blackmail to like tell me who's the inside man.
Well, no. He said he thought she was the inside man.
Oh, yeah, because of that.
He did, yeah. He thought that she was the one, but and he said, you better not be lying to me. So I remember that. I just didn't know if she did have further involvement or not.
Sit down.
Yeah, dude, yeah.
Sit
It's
down.
like, sit down. It's like, it's late. I want to go back to bed. He's like, sit down.
Dude,
And then he shoots at the couch cushion next to her, then shoots a little closer. Not even aiming. He has it like on the side of the armchair, and he's shooting at her, and I'm like, naughty.
Dude, what's it called? When someone is that calm, it always makes me uneasy, man. In a situation like that, when they're just like, sit down. Like, they're so calm. Like, that's what makes it...
Sit down. Yeah, they're not raising their voice.
That's what makes the Joker so scary, is because he's, like, always so calm, and he's just like, it's all right. And you're just like, something's up, man. Why is he so calm? Like, he should be freaking out right now.
Cameron, but when you say the Joker is calm, and I just picture him going, this is how crazy Batman makes everybody, like, I don't know. Calm.
Like, I'm talking about, what's it called? The part where, like, Batman's literally bashing his head, and he's like, don't start with the head. It always makes him fuzzy. Like, that is disturbing because you're like, he should be, like yelling back at Batman saying, I'll never tell you anything. Like, you'll never catch me. But he's just, like, just calm and, like, laughing and enjoying it. And you're like, this is sick.
Yes.
You need help.
The first time that I laughed out loud was when they were pushing the money cart and they go to see the guys at the beginning and they're like, oh, Deborah, you know, she's a real hard like she's going to tear you apart a new one. And you never like see her. And then afterwards he's like, yeah, man, she was like, you know, she was blown away by this guy. And he goes, yeah, man, you look experienced when you're doing this. And he's pushing the bag cart full of money or whatever. And he goes, yeah, man, I had a lot of practice. He's like, practice? And he's like, yeah, I spent a little time at shopping, you know, at the supermarket. Like, it was so stupid. Yeah. It was like supposed to be a joke. But Jason Statham is like so stoic and pissed off. Like, his humor doesn't come through, which is funny because it adds another layer of like how much I liked his character. And that's when I knew, I'm like, he's trying to be funny here. He's trying to put everyone at ease, but he is like roiling with anger. So like nothing he's saying is actually going to come off as funny. And that's what made it so funny. Like he was trying to say a joke right there, and it, like he was so pissed off.
It's like the American Psycho trying to put everyone at ease, like
exactly.
The
Like, let me tell a joke now.
Putting on the mask and being like, "Hey, I'm a happy, nice guy," and you're like, "True colors are kind of shining through right now, Jason." When you're like awake in bed, just like right after that night with the girl, and he's just like, and I'm like, my man does not enjoy anything in life except like murdering people who like killed his son.
Yeah. There's nothing that could bring him joy.
Sweet revenge, dude. Yeah. Oh, and also, like, as soon as I saw him looking at all the time clock cards, I already knew for sure. There was no doubt after my mind. I was like, because sometimes I watch these movies and I'm like, maybe they'll have the same. Like, I thought Nobody would have been the midlife crisis that happened after, but the pleasant reveal and in this movie was, oh, no. They've already had the whole life of this. Like, they've been hiding it or covering it up, and then it just like John Wick, right? It comes back. They get thrown back into the game, and the jig is up. So they holds no barred, and they just go for, you know, full force, guns blazing. All the three movies do that. John Wick and Nobody, and now this one. This was Wrath of Man was a pleasant surprise. So I really enjoyed it. Would you guys recommend this movie?
Yeah. If you like John Wick or Nobody, for sure.
Yeah, if you like revenge flicks and violence.
Yeah. And this one wasn't as gruesome. Definitely a lot of language.
Did you forget about the torture scene where they throw a plastic bag over the black guy and he's like bleeding inside the bag and he's like, dude, that was
very terrifying choking. That looked very real. His face looked like smashed by that plastic bag. It looked very scary, yes.
Yes, and then they're playing that Johnny Cash song, which my roommate's like, this is the best part.
Johnny Cash song. When were they playing that?
When they were torturing the guy.
Jeez. Yeah, that was crazy.
And then did you also forget the whole dark world of like, it was like cartel darkness and it's just like all these like sick people and stuff. Like they blur out.
He was murdering them all.
No, but to be fair, it was still like the surface level. I'm glad because they could have made it a whole another sequence where they went down this creepy,
But yeah, it was all kind of blurry too in the background.
Oh, you got all this terrible seedy underbelly stuff. I'm fine, just like Guy Ritchie did it. Just skim the surface, like we get it. Like, oh, these are the kinds of things that, these people deal with. There's sick psychopaths, all that stuff. Like the ladies all tied up or whatever. But things like that where it's like, don't need to spend time here. I got it. Scumbag. Like I've seen it so many times now where it's like, yeah, you don't need to include it in your film. And this movie did it really well. So
my favorite thing is when he's like, give her 200,000 cash. When he just like says stuff like that, when I'm just like, when that's just pocket change and you just like murdered somebody and then you're just like, give her 200,000 cash. I'm like, what the fudge? Who are you, dude? It reminds me of Goodfellas when like there's like so powerful like every single waiter when they like shake their hand they like give them 100. I'm just like, what the fudge, bro? What type of cash?
I know, like I want to go work there. Yeah,
I know.
I want to work with a bunch of corrupt mobsters.
Every handshake you get is just a hundo. And when people are sliding into their pockets too and like are tapping them on the chest, like appreciate it.
You know what that reminds me of Parks and Rec when Tom Haverford is friends with the Venezuelans or whatever.
Oh yeah, they're sliding money.
And they keep giving him money for doing like menial tasks.
Like, go give me a water. Go give me some snacks. And he's like, he comes into the like. The
he's all
room.
offended at first, and then he give him like $100, and he's like.
I love it when he's in the room or whatever. He walks in, like they all sit down, and like at first he like hated it, like you were saying, and he's like,
"Yeah,
hey,
can I get you guys some water?"
Yeah.
And Leslie Knope was like, "Oh, I'd love some," and he's totally ignoring Leslie. He's like, "Yeah, water, some snacks," and she's like, "Oh, that sounds great. I'd love some." Yeah, and he's totally ignoring her. She's not the tipper. She's not the one that's tipping Tom. I love that. So one last nitpick I almost had was Jan's character was so psychotic. There's always the guy that does the heist. He buys the too nice of a bike. He buys the too nice of an apartment.
Oh yeah.
He's not willing to go incognito. It's like, of course he's not. Like he's the bachelor. He's going to spend all his money. He's going to live how he wants, and then get murderous and psychotic over it.
Dude, I watched this like a day or two after I just watched Goodfellas, so it reminded me so much of that guy who bought the pink car. And he just flips out. And, why are they? Freaking dude, Robert De Niro. He's like just losing his mind. What did I tell you? I told you not to. He's like freaking out, and I'm just like, oh man, this is scary. He's like, you think this is a joke? He's like, you're driving around in a pink car. He's like, what is this? He's like, take this off right now. He's like, the girl has the coat on. I was just like, that's as scary.
Oh yeah. Did you see Breaking Bad, Cameron?
No.
There's scenes like this throughout the show where he keeps buying this fire red Charger or Mustang or something. Like he's buying this muscle car and it's a sport car and it's like, you're a teacher, like a now fired teacher. Like how could you possibly own this and you own a car wash, so like, but it's just really clever because he's always trying to spend the money. He's Breaking Bad. He's midlife crisis and whatnot. So but it's just funny because I always have that scene and it's like, you're going to get, your cover's going to be blown because of the way you're spending your money. Like no one's going to believe that you actually have that money. Then an auditor comes in and then the jig is up, So yeah, love those scenes. But anyway, Jan is psychotic and it's like, I guess he's psychotic for the sake of being psychotic. Every heist
has a person,
has
yes.
one.
I was going to say the town has this brother that's just
town
unhinged.
Jeremy Renner's character.
Jeremy Renner needs to fetch and chill.
The Madsen guy, Mr. White, was it, or Mr. Black? I can't remember. In Reservoir Dogs.
Reservoir Dogs, yeah.
Or it was Orange. I can't remember.
It was the guy who wanted to
but
torture him or whatever, and then he shot him.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's the one that loses at the bank, and he kills all those tellers. And it's always the one guy that... And he's also the one that ruined the heist where, he ended up killing hostages.
Oh, that was in Heat, too. I don't want to spoil that one yet. You haven't seen it,
Oh, yeah. It's in every single movie. So I'm just saying Jan is kind of the stereotypical... But at the end, it worked differently because he was the only one that escaped with all the money, which is interesting.
Yeah, which is funny because he's like the dumbest one of them all. And no,
Right.
as soon as he said, make sure that we get the money to the families, I'm like, yeah, it's not getting to those families.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that too. And they even mention it.
Yeah, have you seen how he's living?
And they even mention it. They're like, I don't trust that to be the case. You know, if Jan's the last one, he's not gonna give it to my family. So you make sure that it happens. You know. Yeah, overall, is a good film. Recommend it.
When it was 4-5 against 1, and my man still made it out on top. Good work, Jan.
Jan's evil, man. Usually, in each of the end of the podcast, we talked about movies that we've seen lately and movies that we were looking forward to. Real quick, I wanted to say I watched a movie called Army of the Dead.
Oh, jeez.
Which, Zack Snyder, dude, I just came from watching like 4 hours of Justice League, and he's like already coming out with another movie. Then again, Justice League was done a long time ago, and they finally released the Snyder Cut, which by all accounts was a perfectly fine movie. I mean, it's 4 hours long. I never saw the original Justice League because I heard it was so terrible, and I'm glad I didn't. But I watched like plenty of internet videos that explain the differences between the two.
We're
and I'm
aware
like,
of your thoughts on
how
Justice
did they
League.
ever
Talk about Army
Yeah, how
of
did
the
they
Dead
ever
shit.
approve that? Yeah, it's like how on earth did they ever approve that mess? So Zack Snyder comes up with this movie called Army of the Dead, and it's got Drax, which I really like, from Guardians of the Galaxy. I can't remember his name.
I call him Drax, too.
Yeah, I know, right?
I, even when I saw him in Blade Runner 2049, I'm like, hey, it's Drax.
It's Drax, which he was so good in that movie, by the way.
So scary
Love
in that
him.
movie.
That was such a great that fight
So
sequence that he has with
large.
Ryan Gosling was so good. Yes, he's so intimidating. Dave Bautista, that was his name. So this movie came out and it just hit Netflix and it was in the select theaters and whatnot. But this movie was so clever. It was like disguised as like a heist movie. See, as soon as it started, Jordan, that opening sequence reminded me so much of Zombieland. I was like, this is going to be a great movie.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, this is going to be so much fun. It's going to be Zombieland. It's going to be quirky, like as soon as the what's his face, the cool Japanese guy, easy peasy Japanesey guy, Hiroki Sanada, and it was funny because he's like, hey, that's not okay to say anymore. He goes, it's okay because I'm Japanese. Whatever, easy peasy lemon squeezy. It was so stupid though because like he owned the bank vault and he's like, you need to go in and break into my vault and like get all this money out. I love that premise, and they could have done so many fun things with it. One good scene, for example, was like when they send the zombie down the hallway, he gets shot with a bunch of darts. It's like an Indiana Jones, throne room where like they have all the booby traps.
Yeah.
The zombie's walking toward the vault, gets shot with a bunch of darts, and then all of a sudden it gets like shot up with a bunch of guns, and the very last one, the wall just squishes him. It was really funny because I was like, moments like those, like they should have had this scene where they're driving through this city in a really nice car and hitting zombies or like distracting them or whatever. I have so many questions, and I know that they're probably going to start a whole Army of Dead universe, but first off, this movie had no Army of the Dead. It wasn't an army. Like there was probably one scene where you had a lot of zombies or two. I was so disappointed. I thought there would be like a giant army that would show up in this movie. I just think it's like a misnamed movie. I don't know. What do you think about it? Do you think it was satisfactory, Jordan?
I way overhyped that movie to death.
Jordan was supposed to go watch it with me, but my man has the patience of a freaking psychopath. And literally he's like, yeah, actually, you don't need to watch it, Cameron, because I saw it in theaters. And I was like, we literally were about to watch it tomorrow for free on Netflix. And you went to the theaters and saw it.
I'm sorry. I was so excited because I watched this trailer like a million times, and I was so excited.
I never saw the trailer, so that benefited me because, again, this movie was super weird. Like Zack Snyder weird, but it was like, I don't know. I've read up plenty of it, and I tried to understand it.
They built up so many awesome things at the beginning. I'm like, oh, sweet. He's going to be chopping some guys up with that saw, and he just like does nothing with it. Boo.
Yes, and there was no mention of it. They don't even use the saw. Like, I was like so excited, just like you, Jordan. I was like, oh, they're going to cut up. It's going to be like freaking dead, what's it called? Brain dead, taking a lawnmower and just chopping up zombies.
Nothing.
Anyway. But another thing I thought was interesting, this was like a remake of the movie Aliens. Like, think about it. Like, the very scene at the very end where they fly off, they get to the rooftop and the helicopter lady's gone, and they're like, oh no, like you abandoned us, and
then they just pop up.
And then like a second later, she's there, like she didn't leave, and I was like, this is so dumb. Like, why?
Well, and if she was right there, wouldn't they hear the helicopter, like hear that noise? It's super loud.
Right. It's just like right over the side of the edge of the building, and it comes up. That doesn't even matter. In the end, what's crazy? I learned this. Apparently, that was supposed to be Chris D'Elia, but apparently he's got a lot of sexual misconduct allegations toward him right now. So they cut out his entire part in the movie, and they put in that actress, whatever her name is, Ted, whatever. She's super funny. She was in Instant Family. She was one of the foster home or relocation employees. She's great. She's really funny. And in fact, one of the great scenes is when they recruited her and they're like, hey, you have a job. We're going to fly over to Vegas and it's going to be $2 million. And she's like, yeah, I'm in. And they're like, wait, don't you want to know more about the job or whatever? And she's like, no, I'm good. Like, let's
Kind
do
of
it.
reminds me of The Flash when they're teaming him up. Yeah.
Barry Allen, yeah, that's what I was thinking of when you're talking about that.
Check us out on Spotify, YouTube,
Check us out on
like,
Patreon.
follow, thumbs up, push the notification bell. You'll get notified of all the cool things. Leave us a review. And if you don't want us to comment on the review, don't leave a review, I guess, because we'll talk about the movies you want, and then we'll call you
and Ty would like to personally apologize to
our only fan.
Their only fan for... Now she doesn't listen.
I'm not sorry.
No, yeah, you are.
Snowflake.
I am. I'm sorry on behalf of Ty. She unsubscribed from us and she deleted her comments because of how mean you were to her.
Dude, that's how we treat our guest here. We have one person that listens to the podcast, and we'll banish you. She's banished from the show. She didn't drop her comment. I canceled her from the show. She's not allowed here anymore. So leave us a review, 5 stars, please, and don't unsubscribe.
Just send all your hate comments to Ty.
I need friends. We're going to end this podcast now. Thanks for tuning in. This is Futro Hidden Movie Gems. Oh, leave us an email at futuromovies@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. This is Futro Hidden Movie Gems signing out. Peace.
I love you, Jason Statham.
Oh, you wisecracker.